I'm Karaleigh Garrison, singer-songwriter, self-care coach for burnt-out moms, and your host of the Seeking Sunshine podcast, where we find the positive in the trials of life. There are times when life just brings you down, 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 down to the ground, and it's hard when you can't see the light, 'cause things don't look so bright. So now it's time to reframe and retrain your brain. It's time to look for the good. You know that you should. Why don't you join me? 'Cause I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. Oh, oh, oh. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm so excited to share this new version of my single Seeking Sunshine with you in my upcoming album. I don't have a release date yet, but stay tuned, it's coming up. Are you looking for ways to support my podcast? If so, then please like it, subscribe it, and leave it a review. Did you know that if you leave a review, it helps my podcast get shown to more people? I would so appreciate it if you could leave some words in the review box and let people know. Share this with your friends and family and just tell them about the episodes that you really like and some of the takeaways that you've personally received and that have helped you out. Do you have a story to share? I would love to interview you for my podcast. I want to hear all about you and what you've been through and how you've been able to seek sunshine in your journey. Please reach out to me. You can send me a message in DMs on social media, or you can even send me an email at karaleiggarrison@gmail.com. I would love to talk to you. Hey guys, it's Karaleigh and welcome back to the Seeking Sunshine podcast. I am so thrilled that you chose to be here with us today, and I promise you today's episode will not disappoint. Tracey Ferrin is here to share her story, and it is mind-blowing and just like you're going to be on the edge of your seat the whole time she is talking. Her story blows my mind. Like the strength that she has shown is absolutely incredible, and she's just an awe-inspiring human. Like there's just no other way to say it. So I'm so happy to be back after we had a week where we had special episodes of the Dare to Self-Care workshop. Those are all still up and available for you if you would like to listen. We had some really, really amazing information there to help you learn how to love yourself better and how that helps you be a better human to everyone around you. So I really encourage you that if you missed those episodes, go back and listen to them because they're amazing. There's a lot to learn in there. And so moving on, I'm going to introduce today's guest. Holy moly, Tracey Ferrin is unbelievable. She's just incredible. So she is the best-selling author of her book, Up Struggle. She's a motivational speaker, a content creator, and the host of Rock Your Kindness podcast that is presented by Love What Matters, and she's a proud cancer thriver. She's got over 670,000 followers. She loves to use her platforms to have fun and be a real model and to give back. She's actually used her TikTok community to help raise $40,000 for a Wendy's employee and $90,000 for a man who needed a heart surgery. And she talks about those in this episode, and it's just incredible. Her story blows my mind. She's done so much to help other people. You just have to hear her story, and everything that she is and stands for is absolutely incredible. So without further ado, here is Tracey Ferrin. Welcome to the Seeking Sunshine podcast, Tracey. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. I would love to hear your story and find out how you got to where you are today.
Okay. It's big, it's large. And it happened many years ago, but it really has had it was life altering. And it is what I call my ultimate struggle. Because I believe that, as humans, we all have struggles. There's just no way around it. But I also think it's important to be able to identify your ultimate struggle so that when you go through struggles, you can remind yourself, hey, I got through that. And so that's what I share is my ultimate struggle. So back in 2001, I was married and pregnant, and we had a 10-month-old, and I noticed a lump above my knee. We didn't really think much of it. Like, I remember we went to a family reunion, I think in Idaho, and I have an aunt who is a midwife. And I thought, well, surely if I show her, she would know. And I showed her, and she's like, I don't see it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, it's right here. Like, see it, feel it, because I noticed that it really bulged when I would bend my knee. Like, it would kind of pop more. But when I was just standing, like, knees locked, you really couldn't see it. So she kind of didn't notice anything. And I'm like, okay, kind of just ignored it, went on my merry way. But then I've always been in tune with my body. I'm like, this isn't normal. It's not a bruise that comes and goes. Sometimes lumps will come and go. It's just swelling. And I just knew we had to have it looked at. So we actually had a friend in the church in the church that we belonged to, who was an orthopedic surgeon. And one Sunday we're there, and my mom just asked him, so my mom asked the friend from church if he would just look at it, like, so that we knew what to do about it. Was it serious or not? And I sit on the counter because we have, a kitchen in our church, and I'm sitting on the counter, and he looks at it, and come to find out, he knew right away what it was. I go to his, he has that. So that's a Sunday. And then literally the next day, he's like, I want you to come to my office. Let's just take x-rays. Like, acts like no big deal. Like, let's just check it out. Right. Takes the x-ray. My girlfriend takes me to go see him. And he literally just pokes his head out of one of the rooms, is like, go home. We'll talk about it later. And so I'm just thinking by his reaction that it's not a big deal. Come to find out, like, I wasn't just a patient. He knew me and my family. So I think it was a little harder on him. And if I remember correctly, this was the first case of osteosarcoma that he diagnosed. So he actually told my parents first because he didn't know how to tell me. And so my parents found out before I did. Come to find out, he suspected bone cancer, and it's osteosarcoma is a rare type of bone cancer. And thankfully, I'm being in Houston, Texas, and I am in the backyard of MD Anderson. And so he actually had a colleague that he graduated school with, and that was a doctor at MD Anderson, who actually did my surgery. And so it kind of sped up the process. I was able to get in, I think within a week, and maybe see someone biopsy.
Wow.
Like, I got,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I got in so quick, but not only was it the type of cancer, the connection that he had, but I was pregnant,
Yeah, I was
right?
just about to say, like, and you had like a 10-month-old and you were pregnant, and oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so because of, well, one, the cancer alone is rare. So, and cancer, it doesn't matter what type of cancer, it can be tricky to treat. But then throwing pregnancy on top of it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I got the world's best doctor in this type of cancer. So I was really just treated so well. And it's just amazing how many people were just there and able to open up doors. So I get a biopsy, and they do confirm that it is bone cancer. I'm young. I don't know a lot about cancer. 10 years before that, I did have an uncle die of cancer. But all I knew was he was bald, he looked sick, and took something called chemo. Like, you don't, until you cross paths with cancer, you just don't know much about it. And so the doctors, and remember, this is in 01 when this is all happening. So this is a little bit more common now, but my doctor advised me to terminate my pregnancy because he had told me that they just didn't have a lot of research of women who undergo chemo in their first or second trimester, which I was in my second trimester, that delivers a healthy baby, or even,
Oh
even a
no.
live baby. And so but it didn't feel right to me. Now I'm going to be 100% transparent. I believe that is a woman's choice. And I believe there are situations that call for it, like the mother's life is at risk, and I think that's a personal decision, and that nobody can judge another person for the decision they make. But to me, in my core and my gut, I just didn't feel like that was necessary for my situation. And I was like, like heels dug in. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. I'm not doing it. And so I told them, I'm not doing chemo. I'm not doing the treatment. Sorry, but I'm not doing it. And they were like, so this is what I tell my doctor. I'm young and I'm wise, right? I'm like, look, I got a plan. Okay. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this. I'm like, let me just finish out my pregnancy. Just, I'll have a healthy baby. Then you and I will hook back up and we'll do this chemo stuff and we will take care of cancer.
It'll wait. It'll keep. We'll just
Like,
pick up.
untreated cancer, no big deal, right? And he was like, okay, that we cannot do that. That's the difference in life and death, because that was like 3 months. I mean, and it's an aggressive cancer that I had. And so that kind of changed things, right? I'm young, I don't know. And I'm thinking, we can wait and then deal with it. And that's just not the reality of cancer or a lot of cancers.
Well, and were you in pain? Were you like struggling with that?
Yeah. So I don't really remember being in a lot of pain, but my parents did tell me that I would complain about where the tumor was, the bump, about having aches and pains or sleeping with a pillow between my legs. I mean, but I was also pregnant, right? So we sleep with pillows between our legs. I don't really remember, but I remember being told that I did complain a little bit about having that pain. So once my doctor had told me that was a life and death situation and that I couldn't, but I also said, well, I'm not terminating. So we've got to come up with a different plan. And he, talked with some OBs, consulted with other doctors. What can we do? We have no research. Like, she's not willing to terminate, but she needs to be treated. So the plan was, if I just waited till my 3rd trimester, that then we could start chemo, because by then most babies are developed. It's just about getting bigger, putting more meat on their bones and stuff like that. But all the major stuff is developed.
Were they suggesting you have the baby early?
Yes. Okay. So it was wait until the 3rd trimester, then start chemo. So the 3rd trimester, I was only 3 weeks away. So I only had to wait 3 weeks versus 3 months, which is life and death, right? And I was willing to take that little bit of a risk of 3 weeks against me. So I waited 3 weeks and actually was scheduled to go to MD Anderson on 9/11/01. That was when I was scheduled. I know, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I tell you, people would not believe my story if I didn't have family to be like, no, that's what happened. And my dad and my mom kept journals, which is how I was able to know like these dates and these details that I actually wrote in my book. My mom kept a calendar that she's kept, and my dad just wrote all this stuff out. And so I'm like, I need those things because I don't remember everything. But it was 9/11/01. And because of what was going on, they did delay my chemo till the next day, but they couldn't push it too far. It's just, there was so much uncertainty. And I just remember thinking, our country's at war or under attack. And in my own way, I was under attack and having to, and fixing to go to war myself in a different way.
Chemo is scary. Cancer is scary. Like, yeah.
Well, I think that being young played in my favor. I didn't know the reality of what I was fixing to have to go through. And so I went into it being very optimistic, which is good. I mean, you say I have cancer now and I'm going to be a big old baby on the floor, because I know the reality of it and I know how hard it is and I know the complications and I know everything about it, that it would be so hard. So my youth really played a favor in the way I approached it, because so I start chemo and I remember everyone just always looked at me like I was an injured puppy, and I'm thinking, why are y'all looking at me? First, I don't want your pity. I don't need y'all to pity me. It's not that big of a deal. I feel great. So I'm thinking, it's because I don't know anything. I didn't realize that with each round of chemo, your body gets weaker and you feel worse and there's more complications. I didn't realize that, right? My mom was around and an adult when her brother, my uncle, was going through it. My mom knew the reality of it, which makes sense as to why they were looking at me the way they were. I did not know the reality of chemo and cancer. So I ended up doing.
Chemo's not always the answer either. Like sometimes, so I had
I'm going to try to be anonymous with this. I have a very close family member who was diagnosed with cancer weeks ago, and
Hmm.
she's young. And so like this definitely hits close to home because I'm seeing this kind of play out, and thankfully like chemo's not looking like it's on the table right now, but like how impactful to your entire life. Like this rewrites your whole story, and with little kids at home and like trying to care for them while you're dealing with chemo and your body's just not functional, and it's the unimaginable, coming to life.
And it gets better. You ready? So, after my first round of chemo, I stayed in the hospital because the chemo they hit me with was they wanted to hit me with the strongest stuff first. And I had to be monitored, my organs and heart and all that stuff. So I go home after my first round of chemo, and my husband at the time decides he just can't do it. And we had this whole thing planned out. Like we were living with my parents. He was going to be my caretaker. My parents were going to work. Like everyone had their role to play. And when he decided to leave, it flipped everyone's roles upside down, you know?
I'm sorry. He left.
He did.
He left.
He left.
What?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
he left. I always tell people like at the time it was really hard, but I'm over it. I've healed. I've processed it and worked through it. And I don't harbor any bad feelings towards him. We were really young, and when we told MD Anderson that he had left, they actually said that when a woman gets sick, there's a higher percentage that the husbands leave than the wives leave the husband when the husband is sick.
Interesting. Oh, so part of
Mhm.
my story is I got married at 18 up here in Provo, BYU, and my husband was 22, and within 5 years he was disabled and couldn't work, and we've spent the last decade of him being disabled and me being his caretaker and the kids caretaker. So
Mhm.
I've lived, it wasn't cancer, but I've lived this life of caring for someone. And so from my perspective, it's just astounding. And I you have to look at both sides, right?
Mhm.
For everything. And so of course, like you look at that and you're like, that is an incredibly tough decision. That is an incredibly hard situation to be in, to have to like do something like that. So it's not to totally blame, but it's so hard all the way around.
Yeah, and I don't honestly know why more men leave than women. Women tend to stay through that type of stuff than men.
I think it's because
I
women are naturally born caretakers. We just
You're right.
have that
Mhm.
nurturing, and whether that's children or husbands, we just kind of have that natural part of ourselves. And men are not really, that's not really taught to them as kids. It's not really, and hopefully it is more and more these days, but it certainly wasn't, 20, 30 years ago. It was not taught to
Yeah.
men to be in that kind of caretaker role that was seen as, you know, unmasculine and not
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, I remember. So I was close to his grandmother, and I remember her telling me that he had said that he couldn't just stand by and watch the woman that he loves like just die right before him. And so it's like, even though it's like I could understand it, it still didn't make it any better or make me feel any better. But honestly,
Yep.
because of what I was going through, I didn't have a whole lot of time to harp on that part. I still had to move forward. I still was,
Hello, I'm dying here.
yeah, I couldn't spend too much energy on that. So after
Plus
the
you
first
still
round of
had
chemo,
plus you still had your two little kids.
mhm. Yeah. So after the first round of chemo, he left. I moved forward. So I did two more rounds of chemo, and then they took my daughter 6 weeks early because they wanted to take her as early as they could without any major complications to being a preemie.
Oh, so
Um,
you were still pregnant when you first started chemo.
yeah. Yeah, she did 3 rounds of chemo with me. And every time I did a round of chemo, at least I think the last two, maybe not the first, I think the last 2 rounds of chemo, it put me into preterm labor. And so they would have to then ship me across the street because I was in a medical field center, all these hospitals. And then they'd have to pump me. I believe it was magnesium that they would pump me full of to stop the contractions and stuff. So it was just such a mess. And I like, it was a complicated thing. I can totally understand. My doctor's like, oh my gosh, cancer alone, bone cancer, it's already rare. Now she's pregnant. Now she wants me to treat both her and her baby. It was really a complicated case, but I'm so grateful that I had such a great doctor who did respect my decision, and we came up with a plan that would work, you know? So we didn't really know what to expect when she was born. I mean, I was as bald as Mr. Clean. I'm like bald and no hair, and I'm not even that big because, well, one, the chemo, right, suppresses your appetite. And then she was born 6 weeks early. So honestly, we were expecting to deliver like something that probably looked like an alien. Not really, but just tiny and bald is what we're thinking I'm going to deliver. I kid you not. Okay, she was tiny. It was like a sneeze and she kind of just came out. It wasn't hard because she was so small, but she came out screaming. And we all just started making eye contact with each other. And we're like, she's fine. Because that was the biggest issue that we were worried about was, would her lungs be developed? And of course, they did give me steroid shots to help that process. But you still don't know. Because again, there's no research. This is like 21 years ago. And so we just
I cannot believe that was 21 years ago.
I know.
Like,
it's
what?
crazy. It's so crazy because she just turned 21 in November. So last month. So we are all relieved. One, she's got this head full of hair. How do you explain that? Right? Because I'm doing chemo. Shouldn't she have been getting chemo and all these things? So we're shocked that she has hair. We're shocked that she's screaming at the top of her lungs. Though she was completely healthy. The only thing that was wrong was she was tiny. And you can't send a 3-pound, 10-ounce baby home. And so she stayed in the NICU for a couple of months just to get bigger. She was fine, didn't need help or anything. It was just she was so little. I didn't get to see her a whole lot because so my doctor gave me a week off from having a baby. And right back to MD Anderson, I go to the purple floor doing chemo. And because I was inpatient, she was literally right across the street from me at the hospital. But my dad went almost daily to go and hold her, and family would go visit her because I just couldn't. So she ends up coming home, and she comes home right before Christmas. So she was born November 12th. And I think she spent 2 to 3 weeks in NICU. So, sometime just a few weeks before Christmas. So after I have her, I do one more round of chemo. We have to remove the tumor. So I had leg surgery. And I think the leg surgery was like 13, 15 hours long, something like that. They had to cut the tumor out, right? And then reconstruct and everything. And I remember the lady, Dr. Weber, who did half the surgery, she's like, yeah, we were like sawing on your bone. And I'm like, I don't need the visual. Do not give me the visual.
Oh, that's why it hurts so much. No.
Like, I don't need to know that, And so I'm in the hospital, and Christmas is really fast approaching. And I'm asking my doctors, am I going to be able to go home? Can I go home? My baby's home. I want to be there. It's her first Christmas. And they're like, we really don't think that you're going to be home for Christmas. So this was the type of patient I was and still am. I told my doctor, and they're like, because I asked a couple of times. First, it was, I'm not sure. Let's go another day. Let's hit this milestone. Let's make sure you're able to get out of bed. And I got all that, right? But as we got closer and I kept asking, and they're like, okay, I really don't think you're going to make it. And I don't think you're understanding. I'm like, oh no, I understand. You don't understand me. I'm going home. Like, I'm going home, whether you release me or I walk out of this hospital.
Like, this is happening.
This is happening whether you want it to or not. I am going home to spend Christmas with that baby that I delivered the month prior. So thankfully they agreed
and
that I could.
What, 1-year-old, right?
Yes.
I mean, Christmas is like just meant for that age, and yeah, it's just everything.
Yeah, I didn't want to miss it. But that morning they agreed that I could be released. So I did not have to go against the orders, and they did release me. Had Christmas, here comes the new year. And that's where things started getting harder and tricky. So I've already done like 4 rounds of chemo.
Oh, good. That's where things started getting hard.
Harder, absolutely. So I did what, like 4 rounds of chemo, had a baby, had surgery within a few months span. But like I had said earlier, what I didn't realize was the longer time goes on and the more chemo, the harder it truly gets. So I started having things like mouth sores that were so bad that I refused to eat or drink because that's how painful it was. And when you refuse to eat or drink, what happens? You lose weight, you're dehydrated. So there I am back at MD Anderson's ER, pumping me full of fluids. I'm throwing up. There was, my kidneys, because of the chemo, my kidneys, they're like, okay, now her kidneys are being affected. Sometimes the chemo wouldn't clear long enough, so we'd have to wait an extra week. And then I think one of the scariest moments of all of the complications that I had with chemo was I woke up one morning and my motor skills were gone. I couldn't talk and I couldn't write. And I didn't realize it at first because I had been on this chemo, it was methotrexate, and it kind of made me feel like just not there. And you get foggy. It's called, chemo fog. And so I'm just thinking this is just how this is normal. But I had some signs for a treatment or two before that maybe my body was like not being able to handle it, or it's too much, or I wasn't allowed enough time in between before they hit me again. So full blown motor skills gone. I'm sitting at the table. I asked my mom for paper and pen, like this thing, and I'm trying to write down motor skills. And I was able to write it enough to where first my mom just looking at me is like, okay, something's wrong with her. And it looked like a 5-year-old had wrote it, but she was able to read. We go back to MD Anderson, like something is wrong. I'm freaking out. Like, is this the new me? I've got 2 girls. I can't be this way. How am I going to take care of them?
And this whole time, was it your parents were working and taking care of your girls while you were in the hospital?
Yeah. So my sister ended up coming home. There's 4 of us girls. I'm the baby. My older sister, the third, came home to take care of my children. My mom was my caregiver because I needed a full-time caregiver. And then my dad was financially supporting the family. My mom was working, but she got fired because my husband was gone and she had to be my caregiver and missed way too much work. Yeah. So we're at MD Anderson's ER, and they bring in a neurologist because they're trying to figure out what's going on. And you're a mom, so you'll understand this. When the kids are little and you have the flashcards and they're hearts and a purple, square and a house and a flower. And you're like, this is a flower. This is a purple, square. This is a red heart. Those are the cards. I am a grown woman. And those are the cards that the neurologist brings in. It's like, do you know what
the question is like, is your brain functioning? Is it just your motor skills, or is everything fading? I mean, that's an important question to answer in a time like that.
Absolutely. And it was almost like being trapped inside your brain. Like I knew that I still knew what was going on, but I also knew that they did not know what was going on with me. I knew I was there. Right. I knew I wasn't gone. It's just, I knew I couldn't speak and my motor skills were gone. And I just didn't know if they were going to come back. And so obviously I couldn't speak. And so he would lie and I'd have to nod. So it was more than nodding. And then he realized, okay, her brain is fine. And they realized that I was overdosed on chemo. And when on this chemo, what they would do is I would have to take a pill, I think several times a day. And then I'd have to test my urine to see where it was at before I could go back and do another round. And they're like, she just needs more time. They doubled me up on the medication so that the chemo would flush my body. And I think within 24 hours, I had my motor skills back. So it was that's probably out of everything, probably the scariest thing that I went through. I mean, I went through so much more: blood transfusions, just all filed for divorce during this time, So I'm just going through round after round after round. Things are getting harder on me, harder on my family, financially, just in every way you can think possible. And I still have a couple more rounds to do. But everything in me is saying, you need to stop. You have to stop. You are dying. If you do one more round of chemo, it could kill you. So this was something that I had to think about. This was a decision I had to make, and I talk to my mom about it, but everything was saying, you got to stop. And I was about 2 to 3 rounds that I had left. So I went to my doctor and I said, I'm done. You're killing me. That's what chemo is. Chemo is poison. It not only is it killing the bad, it's killing the good inside of you. And so I'm glad I listened to that. I really let my intuition and my gut guide me in everything that I do. And so I went to him and said, I'm done. I can't do anymore. And he was like, well, you're not terribly crazy to quit. He's like, I've hit you pretty hard and I've treated you a little bit longer than most, and obviously that was the right decision for me, right? Because I'm here that was 21 years later, I'm still here. So I'm not an advocate for going against your doctor, but I am a massive, huge advocate for listening to your intuition. People call it the spirit, your intuition, your gut, whatever. It's the same thing, different labels, different names. To really listen to that, because doctors mean well, but nobody knows our bodies better than we do. I may not have a medical degree, I may not whatever, but I am so in tune with my body that I just know what's best for it. And we have to, as especially women, I think we have to learn how to trust that. And the more that we trust it, the more confidence we gain when we're faced with these decisions. And we do it and we follow through. So chemo is done.
I was going to ask you, through all this darkness and this just most insanely difficult thing that you went through, like where the sunshine is, but I think you just said it. The sunshine is learning to trust your intuition, to trust yourself, to trust in a higher power, although, all that wrapped up into one, but to trust that voice in your head that knows your body, and to take that time to listen to it, which when we're in our crazy busy lives, we often just kind of shove it aside and go, 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 go. But when you're in that crisis state and you have no choice but to kind of listen to that. I mean, you have a choice, but that voice seems bigger and louder when it's in a quiet hospital than it does when you're driving and through rush hour traffic,
Yeah. Well, and through it all, I mean, and my girls were my sunshine through it all as well. Like my 10-month-old was more my emotional support. And because I was so sick and she was a little bit older, I really couldn't take care of the newborn because I couldn't be woken up I didn't have the strength. I had just had surgery. I was on crutches and I wasn't able to put weight on my leg they said a year, but I did 10 months. I'm like, I'm fine. Again, my thing, you can't put weight on it for a year. And I'm like, 10 months is good.
10 months is a super, super long time to not put weight on your leg. Like that's no simple thing. That's that's a really long time.
Well, and I'm glad I brought that up because that was part of what made everything so hard. I've got a newborn, I've got a baby, I'm under chemo, but I'm on crutches. Can't walk. So I literally spent my entire time in my bed or at MD Anderson in bed. I couldn't do physical therapy. Eventually afterwards, years later, I did my own physical therapy and they didn't think that I would be able to get my heel to my butt, to that full range of motion. And it took me about 10 years, but I finally got it, the full range of motion. But I also like when people are like, don't expect or you can't do. And I'm like, oh, that you just said those powerful words. Watch me. I'm like, watch me. Don't tell me I can't do something. I will prove you wrong time and time again. So that took a really long time.
That's so important to remember that. You can do anything. It might just take time.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of consistency and a lot of practice, but you can do it. You can.
Yeah. And the time is going to pass anyways. Right. And it was rehabbing my own leg. It was uncomfortable. It was painful. It was frustrating. But I did it on my own. And I remember, so I have gone to give MD Anderson a couple of speeches. And I remember I did it for a bunch of retirees one year. And a doctor comes up to me. She's a retired physical therapist. And she comes up to me and she's like, I just have to ask you, who did your physical or your rehab and everything on your leg? And I was like, I did. She's like, you walk so well, because she did this from MD Anderson. She knows the cancer. She knows, what usually happens. And I'm like, well, thank you. But it's because I didn't give up, and I think too many people are quick to say, the doctor said so, I have to listen. And our bodies are so powerful and they want to heal and they want to get better. And I really believe in that our thoughts have power. There's research and books that say that your cells in your body will respond to your thoughts, which is crazy powerful. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of the brain and that the body does want to get better and heal. And, I've gone through so many health issues and especially one lately. I was diagnosed with POTS in September. And that has been hard and frustrating. And something I tell myself is my body is strong, my body is healthy, and my body self-heals. Whether it's true or not, at least it puts your mindset, in a good space and stuff.
Well, and it is true. Like when you look at those, it's like your body does self-heal, actually. Like they do. It's miraculous to watch. I mean, we can look at it with a little paper cut and we can see how our bodies heal, and it just seems to be harder for us to believe it when it's something bigger, and when we have medical professionals telling us, okay, this is chronic, this is going to be your whole life. I mean, I've witnessed, like, my husband was disabled and now he's not. He went through this like miraculous recovery where he was walking on a cane and he couldn't stand up for more than 10 minutes, and now he jogs for fun, and now he does all these things. And it's like I've seen that our bodies can heal in ways that seem impossible with that mindset, with that work.
Yeah. And I definitely don't think they will when we adopt the belief that the doctor tells us and then we develop a victim mindset. I just don't see the body healing when you've given up and you've accepted a diagnosis or you've accepted limitations, So with this big sad story, there has to be a happy ending, right? So my divorce was finalized roughly about a year after I was completely done with treatments. And right after my divorce was final, I'm like, okay, I've got to get back into the dating scene. Like, I want to get back into the dating scene. And so I go back to church and I'm doing all these things. And I meet a guy, and we have been married for almost 19 years now.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. And in 2008, he adopted the girls. Because my ex-husband, once he left and we got divorced, he was pretty much an absentee father. And so my new husband, Ryan, he stepped in as dad, and the girls, they were 2 and 3, so they were young. And so they know him as dad, and he wanted, to just make it official. And we also had concerns of me being so fresh out of cancer that what if it comes back? What if something happens? What if I die? We want to keep this little family together. Because him and I went on to have 2 more boys together. So he adopted the girls. We added 2 more to the family. And that's that, and now I am where I am, but a lot of it, not only the situation, because I believe we can go through hard things and not use it to serve us, but we become a victim to it and we let it take from us. And I've developed this mindset that I'll be damned if I was going to let cancer take from me. I'm going to take from it. Like, even when they told me that I would go bald with the chemo, I shaved my head because my thought process was, I'm not going to let the chemo take my hair. I'm going to give it up when I want to give it up, and I'll shave my head when I'm ready to shave my head. And so I did. And so this was so traumatic that after it happened, I really never wanted to talk about it. I wanted to almost act like it didn't happen, not talk about it. If anyone in my family talked about it, I got so upset because I'm like, this is not your story.
Because you had PTSD from years of trauma, like really, really insanely intense trauma.
Yeah. And it wasn't that it wasn't their story. It was their story, but they just had a different part in it, but at the time I'm thinking, this isn't your story. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about the things I went through. Like, you can't do that. It's because I didn't want to deal with it. And my parents were always saying, you've got to talk about it. You've got to talk about it. I remember just being like so annoyed, but that voice never left my head. And I knew I needed to talk about it. Even when I met my husband, I didn't talk to him about my experience for the longest time. But I slowly and surely, as our relationship got stronger and I knew I could trust him, slowly started talking about it. And then I realized the more I talked about it, the less power it had over me. And I had to acknowledge my story. I had to own it to move forward. And I was trying to not own it.
That's a gem right there, like what you just said. You have to own your story to move on from it.
Yeah, I had to. And part of that was, and then I noticed that I was just having struggle after struggle after struggle. And I thought that once I started making better choices, which I did like right before I met my husband, obviously I got, I was a pregnant teen, got married, and then we got pregnant again or whatever. So I wasn't making the best of choices. So I'm like, okay, if I start making better choices and I go back to church, like my life will be great. No, it's just you have different struggles, right? And so I was like, I am so tired of struggling and feeling like I'm not growing from them, feeling like I'm not learning and not feeling empowered. And so I don't even know. Years ago, I sit down and through reflection and through like being more intentional when I would struggle, like really thinking about it. What could I have done better so that next time I go through this, I'll do that. Really had to reflect. And I literally took to Google search bar. So with my reflection and with the Google search bar, I had discovered that there are 3 types of struggles, and I call them universal struggles, that it doesn't matter who you are. You will have struggles from these 3 categories. And the first one I call self. Well, being a teen mom, that was self, right? There's consequences to choices that we make in life. And those are struggles that are self-inflicted by one's own actions. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because there's a level of accountability that you have to take ownership in it. And then the second one, I just kind of call others. And that's pain inflicted on you through the actions of others, which is real. Someone cheats on you, that causes you pain, right? But what I have found with doing more research and talking with people with struggles is a lot of people want to put their struggles in that category. And I really don't believe that they belong there. And then I'll tell them, okay, so if you think that most of your struggles are because of other people, why are you choosing to surround yourself with people who are bringing pain to you? Again, that is the choice. You are choosing to surround yourself and be with them. So really, it's a self problem, not an others problem. And then the third struggle, the universal struggle, I just call life. Like my cancer, nobody caused it. Nobody caused me to have cancer. I didn't cause the cancer. There are just things that are going to happen, like natural disasters and cancers that nobody can control. These things just happen, right? But then I realized, but we can control our response and how we deal with these struggles. And so I came up with some questions, like for the self-inflicted struggles, just did I bring this upon myself? And if so, what can I do differently? Now, I'm not saying avoid struggle because you can't completely, but when we make choices that cause consequences, that cause us pain and struggles, it could have been avoided if we had made a better choice. It's like when that people are struggling with the same thing, like whether it's ourselves or we see a loved one, and you're like, if you just stop making the same choice, your struggle will end. The hamster wheel. We have to acknowledge, change it, do different, because you can't avoid all struggle, but you can't avoid the self-inflicted ones, And then the pain, as far as, others, it's like, okay, usually and you have to, and the reason I believe that you have to be able to acknowledge self, others, or life, because they're kind of going to be approached a little differently, right? So if someone in our life is causing us pain and struggle, maybe we need to have a conversation with them. Maybe we need to set boundaries. I was not always setting boundaries, and I'm a boundary queen now. I'm like, not going to happen. When I discovered the word no, I was like, Oprah, you get a no, you all get a no, right? And then sometimes I believe that just a little bit of distance. I do really believe that we can still have people in our lives, but love them from afar, right? It's like we see them once or twice a year because we just can't have them all up in our business, all up in our life, but we don't need to cut them out. You know what I mean? So it's setting those boundaries, loving from afar. And then the thing with life is it just roll with the punches. Roll with the punches. Nobody can control it. Nobody caused it. You didn't cause it. But how are you going to respond now? So those are the 3 universal struggles. And I talk about those in my book as well.
Yes.
But
tell me the name of your book. Tell me about your book.
So the book is called Up Struggle, and it's Embrace the Struggle, Become Stronger, Live Happier. Because I truly believe that a lot of people want to bury their head in the sand, right? And you have to embrace it. And it doesn't mean we have to like it, but you have to embrace it. You have to acknowledge it, and you want to use it to serve you instead of letting it use you. And so I actually have a couple reminders. Do you want me to go through that?
Sure.
Like share those? Okay. So I call them just like the 7 reminders, and these are what helped me. So and I'm so glad I have this information because since I've written my book in 2020 and published it, I have gone through some other things. And even though I wrote it, I will still pull my papers out to remind myself what I need to do. So the first one is to remember that we're not meant to go through struggles alone. So who are we leaning on that is helping us? We should be very picky about this. It should be a trusted source, a best friend, a spouse, a therapist, someone that is trusted. We do not want to go, if we're struggling in our marriage, and go ask somebody else who is also struggling in their marriage for advice, right? Like
That's exactly right.
We have to be very choosy and picky. And the other thing is we tend to want to isolate ourselves. We cannot isolate ourselves. When we isolate ourselves, we feel alone. And a lot of people who are there too long commit suicide. And suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death. And it's just so sad. I don't know if you heard, but yesterday it came out that Twitch.
I was just talking to my husband. I was like, do you know about what happened? Because it's been ever, and it's devastating.
It is. And we don't know what he was going through, but somebody doesn't commit suicide because they were happy and doing well. I can tell you that now, right? And so when we're struggling, there was something he was dealing with. We just don't know. When we're struggling, we isolate. When we isolate, we feel alone. When we feel alone and we're there too long, that's when it will lead to suicide. So we need to have people in our lives that we know we can lean on, that truly love us, that offer good advice, and who are probably in a space that you want to be in. Never take advice from someone who is not where you want to be with anything, right? And then the second one is do something right now that will lift your spirit. This will be different person to person. And no, you're not going to want to feel like doing it. Trust me, you're going to want to lay in bed, have a pity party, and sulk. You have to force yourself. And we all need to know what makes us feel better, what lifts our spirit. I can list a couple for me, like exercising. I've been religious with exercise for about 12 years. That's what helped me rehab my leg. I love to write. Writing helps me actually process as I'm writing. I listen to podcasts. I don't listen to just any podcast. I love podcasts that have value. I can learn something from, has a tangible tip or tool, or teaches me how to be better. I listen every day. I am listening to podcasts. So reading, I love reading as well. I love music. So I know, and these things are not expensive. You don't need to go take a trip to Hawaii to lift your spirit. If you can.
And they're also healthy. They're not like, we tend to go, I need something to make me feel good. Let me turn towards cake. Let me turn towards a drug. Let me turn towards shopping. Let me turn towards something that will make me feel better, when there's things that are so much better for us, like exercise, taking a walk outside in nature, writing, music. Like there's all these things that are really actually going to fill us, instead of the things that are only temporary, that just seem like they might be nice for a second.
Yeah. And people are like, well, what about people who can't exercise? And this is my belief, because I've been a group fitness instructor since 2015. Because of some health issues lately, I've had to take a break. I don't care what your situation is or what disability you have. People can do some form of movement. And it's finding what type of movement you like, right? Pilates, yoga, spin, swimming. There was a lady when I taught at a gym, she would come in her wheelchair and she would work out in her wheelchair. I saw a man one time in my class who had one arm, and we were doing chest presses with a barbell, arm and his like the nub, right? And he's making it work. So I don't want to hear excuses, because excuses keep us stuck. And I don't care what you're dealing with. There is something that you can do. even just sitting. I've had to do it with POTS. I had to start off just sitting because I couldn't stand for very long. So just find
people underestimate how much better it can make you feel just to like stretch your arms, like literally just like put your arms above your head and just like even you know, stretching your fingers out and just like rolling your like how much that can actually like just shift your mindset and make you go, oh, I'm noticing my body, I'm feeling my body, I'm present, I'm here. And like just even those little simple things can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And everyone just needs to find what works for them. That's all, right? If you're like, I don't like to exercise, it's because you haven't found the type of exercise that you are excited to get out of bed and go do. So just whatever works for you. The third reminder is this is for you, not against you. So lean in and search for the lesson that it has to offer. That is something that took me forever to learn, was that struggles are not the enemy. Struggles are opportunities in disguise. And when I don't need to tell you what you need to learn, you don't need to tell me what I need to learn. I really believe that deep down, we all know what we need to learn. We just need to let pride and ego go and open up our heart and minds and listen and look for it, because I'm a huge believer that we find what we're looking for. And you better believe if I'm going to go through a struggle, I'm going to learn something and I am going to become better for it. I think when we don't have that mindset, that's when we develop the victim mindset. And that's when we feel like I went through that for nothing. Well, of course you feel like you went through it for nothing. You didn't learn. You didn't find your lesson. Me, I'm like,
that's exactly what Seeking Sunshine is all about. It's like when we're looking in hindsight at our trials and when we're going through them in the moment, like how do you find the sunshine? How do you find something, a nugget to anything? Like we're not, you know, saying that this isn't really hard, or we're not, you know, pushing away the pain. We look at the pain and we really feel it, but then like, how can we use that? How can we find something that is sunshine in the craziness?
And sometimes it's just knowing that you will be better for it, right? There's times when I'm struggling that it sucks. I'm not saying don't acknowledge it. We're human. Struggles can downright suck. We don't ask for them, but they're not going to go away just because we don't like them. So what can we do? We can learn from them and become better because of them, right?
One of my favorites is like, this is going to make a really good story.
Yeah. And, you know, some struggles are like my cancer. Some are so massive, you just can't even process, right? It's so hard that you're just one foot in front of the other. Some are a little bit smaller and we can kind of think and process. But one thing I know is nobody gets to tell nobody how hard their struggle is. Nobody gets to say that. I get so sick and tired of hearing people be like, that's not that bad. Well, to you, that may not be that bad, right? So a big struggle to me might be small to you and vice versa, and nobody gets to say it. But we know when we're really in the thick of it, and you just got to let the clouds part. Once those clouds part, we can see a little bit better and we can start looking for it. We don't need to shame ourselves or beat ourselves up. Sometimes we can find the lesson in the struggle, and sometimes it's more reflecting that we think back on it and we find the lesson. Because sometimes that's really the only thing I have to hold on to is I know I'll be better because of this. Okay, I got this. And that's also why knowing your ultimate struggle is so key, because I always remind myself, if I could go through cancer, divorce, pregnancy, all the things in like a year, just over a year, I got this. I can do it. So everybody needs to be able to identify their ultimate struggle. The fourth one is, this will make me stronger. Put it on repeat like you do your favorite Kane Brown song over and over. It's nobody's job to be my cheerleader. I need to be my own cheerleader. And so sometimes if that is the only thing we can repeat it. I will be strong. And I promise you, I do this. I really do. But what we put on repeat in our brains, that's a choice. It truly is a choice. And so choose to believe that you will become stronger because of this. Number 5, I know we already touched on this, but remember that one time you got through ultimate struggle, insert, right? You got this. So just remember, always remind yourself of that hard thing that you've gone through. And if you could get through that, you can get through this. This doesn't mean that your ultimate struggle won't be replaced, because it very well could, but at least you have proof that you can do hard things. Thankfully, cancer was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and it has not been replaced because I just can't imagine, going through something harder than that right now. And then number 6 is focus on a solution to the struggle, because I believe what we focus on gets bigger. I think sometimes we get caught up in the problem and we focus on the problem. And what started off maybe not as big of a deal, now we're putting so much focus and energy on it, it feels 10 times worse because it's all we can see. Find the solution. Acknowledge. You have to acknowledge the problem, then move on to the solutions and do the things. And then number 7, which is one of my favorites, which is usually something that I will, when I can't hold on to anything else, I'll hold on to this one, is use what you went through to help someone get through. Knowing that, okay, I don't see the sunshine right now, or I'm not seeing a lesson. I don't know, but because I've developed the mindset that my struggles are for me, not against me, and because I can find lessons, I know that I will be able to eventually, once I've processed it myself, I will be able to help somebody else walking the path that I once walked. And so I really think those are really good reminders. Why learn from struggles and gain knowledge just to hoard it? I feel like it's so selfish, right? And that's why I love talking about pay it forward, right? And then also just remember, you can't save someone when you're drowning. It is okay to take a moment to breathe. I love the whole playing an oxygen mask analogy. You have to put your own mask on first before you can help somebody else.
Absolutely.
Right? And so depending on the type of struggle that you're in, you might be able to help a little bit, but sometimes you might have to wait till you've processed it and walked through it. And so really the reason why the book is called Up Struggle is, it's not a word, I made it up. But it really is just about some people, everyone struggles, some just do it better. We're all going to struggle. Let's just learn to do it better. It's my own little definition of up struggle. But the subtitle, being embrace the struggle, become stronger, live happier, is my little formula that we just talked about. Simply put, is struggle plus reflection equals the lesson. Okay. Lesson plus application equals growth. I don't know about you, but me and most everyone I know, we love to progress. We love growth, right? So growth just equals you're progressing in life. How do we feel when we're progressing? Joy, happiness, right? So progress equals happiness. So if we use these struggles and we process them and we become better and we use this formula, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I just walked you through it, the long way. Struggles can actually equal happiness if we allow them to. But it's a choice.
I love that. I love that. That is amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was so amazing. We're definitely all going to have to go get your book for sure. So before we have to wrap up, I want you to talk about Rock Your Kindness.
Yeah. So that is a podcast that I'm the host of that I don't know if you're familiar with Love What Matters.
I think that I've heard of it, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So Love What Matters is a storytelling platform, and they focus on overcoming obstacles. They focus on empathy and hope. That's what, when they put these stories out, they do for others. They put multiple stories out every single day. They have 8 million followers on Facebook. They're on Instagram. And they've been around for a while. And how Love What Matters came to be was Colin, the founder. His mom also had cancer many years ago. And Colin is the baby of 3. And he's the most sensitive. And he'll admit that. And his mom told him before she passed that, hey, my death will be the hardest for you. You need to take that pain and you need to do something good with it. Channel it to something good. So he started Love What Matters so that other people didn't feel alone, that other people knew that people are going through stuff, but look, we can overcome this, and to give hope. So these aren't stories of like whining and complaining, woe is me. These are stories of look what I've been through, but look what I've learned. Look at how my life is now. I'm not a victim. And so that's how Love What Matters came to be. And they're currently working on expanding the brand. And Colin asked me if I would be the host of a new podcast. And so Rock Your Kindness is not the initial name we had for it, but working, through some time, we realized that the other way we were trying to go wasn't going to work. And I pitched them Rock Your Kindness. It's actually a hashtag I started in 2020 over on TikTok. I mean, who did not run to TikTok in 2020? We were so bored. What are we going to do? Let's get on TikTok. And building that platform over there for me was not hard. It was fairly easy because I'm not new to social media. I've been on social media for quite some time now, done trainings, all that stuff. So I knew how to build a platform over there. And it was actually quite easy. Then I posted a video of a guy that I met at Wendy's who was just completely joyful. And I promise I'm not the weirdo who normally just randomly records people. He knew I was recording him. But because he has so much joy, I'm like, I've got to record this. Like, no one is going to believe me about this person if I don't actually have evidence, right? And that was on Good Friday. And it wasn't until August of 2020, so that was April, so August, that I had the thought, post it to TikTok, like just spread a little bit of joy, right? Because all of my content, I like to uplift, thought-provoking kind of stuff. And I literally throw it up one night before I go to bed. Didn't put a whole lot of thought, didn't even put a whole lot of editing on it. Just choose joy. That's all I said. Choose joy. And when I woke up, that video just went crazy overnight. And people were like, do the Venmo challenge, do the Venmo challenge. I'm like, okay. So the Venmo challenge is where you raise money for someone or some cause. It's a thing that, they started over there. In 1 week, we raised a little over $40,000 for him. People wanted to give this guy money simply because of the joy that he offered and the light that he was. Now, remember, this is 2020. So we needed that because all we were being shoved down our throats, COVID, scarcity, be scared, fear, right? And so that's why I think it resonated so well over there. So we did that. Then people wanted me to keep doing it. So we found a guy named Ronnie who needed heart surgery. He couldn't have a job because of heart issues. So if you can't have a job, you can't have insurance. So he couldn't have surgery, which I know is bizarre the way it works here. So we raised about $90,000 for him in 1 week. And he was able to get his surgery, and he's a father to 2 kids. And last I heard, he's living life, So because of all these things, and it wasn't just me, I was using my platform to do that. It was the community, right? I can't just give $90,000, $40,000 to people. So I created a hashtag called Rock Your Kindness. It was just like my community's being kind. I want something catchy. I want something different. So I did Rock Your Kindness. And with everything I put, all the videos I would load, I used the hashtag to just kind of come back to me. So a little bit of a personal hashtag. I created something called the Wishlist Wipeout, where I got a bunch of creators together over on TikTok, and we asked our communities to wipe out our Amazon wish list, hence Wishlist Wipeout. But the gifts and the things that were on there, all of this, every creator picked an organization to donate these gifts to. And it was for Christmas. And I had picked a church, and the church gives out gifts to less fortunate families. And so we did that. So it's just kind of like all these things, and the whole Rock Your Kindness. And I was a writer for Love What Matters. And when Colin, reached out to his team and said, hey, I want to start a podcast. Who do you think would be a good host? His team had mentioned my name. So that's kind of how I was a writer for him. I started on TikTok, started the hashtag, and boom, now we have this podcast called Rock Your Kindness. And what I love about it is it's not rock kindness. It's not the kindness show. It's rock your kindness, because I believe that we all show up in our own unique way and we share kindness. How boring of a world would it be if everybody's way of showing kindness was a compliment, right? So some people are really good at giving compliments. Some people love baking, right? Some people, it's through their words. For me, it's uplifting and written word that's just my way. Everybody does it in their own unique way. Some people start charities. I mean, it's rock your kindness, because we're bringing people on the show and we're highlighting extraordinary stories by everyday people who are just in the world showing up and being kind. And so we've had, Russ, who's the founder of Little Bricks Charity, who cashed in his 401k to really go all in on his charity. And he is doing amazing things over there. That's his way of showing up and rocking his kindness, is this charity, right? He's putting big smiles on medically complex children by delivering Legos to them in the hospital. Another one is Jill. So Jill was on the brink of divorce, and she had older kids. And there was a young man who was brought into her life who was in the foster care. He's a teen. Teens being adopted from foster is not common. So she is on the brink of divorce, and adoption comes to her. Like, I need to adopt this child, right? And she does. And it helps to heal her marriage. So yes. And I don't recommend just go adopting to think, but she was listening to that intuition that I might be on the brink of divorce and I don't know how this is going to work, but I know I'm supposed to adopt him. And then it helps to heal her marriage, right? So we tell that it's amazing. It's totally amazing. And then another lady we had on, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was sex trafficked for like 10 years and went through a lot of hard things. I mean, imagine the trauma from something like that for 10 years, okay? She went to school and she was just named Woman of Sonoma County for 2022 for all of the work and help she is doing for women who were once in her shoes, who are walking the path she once walked. So these are the type of stories. I don't want people to feel like in order to be kind, like you have to, like it's these things, right? We also have a story about a lady from Trader Joe's who was just extended kindness to a mother who was struggling. And she had no idea that her simple act of kindness to say, go get in the car, I'll go, because some groceries fell on the ground because she walked her to her car. She was frazzled. And this lady, her name is Beth, said, just get in your car, get your kids in the car. I'll run back in. I'll get these. I'll replace them. Not a big deal. It was life-changing for her. So not only are we talking about, yes, the charity and adoption and these things that they deserve some, highlights as well, but we're talking about simple words that are spoken that are free.
I feel like we're talking about like really seeing people, like noticing the actual struggle and what we have the ability to do just in our own personal way of lifting other people. But you can't do that without first seeing them.
Yes. And we talk a lot about that on the podcast, that to slow down, because yes, it's great to start the charity. It's great to do all these things, but to just slow down. It's free and it costs nothing. Slow down and see somebody. Is somebody walking behind you? Hold the door for them, right? Just a simple glance over your shoulder, a smile. I was just talking about this. Y'all, if you don't believe me, please do your own research. Research what a smile does for you and the benefits. People are promoted who smile more. People who smile are perceived to be more beautiful. So, we have to pay for Botox. We have to pay for a gym membership. We have to pay for cute clothes. We have to pay for the boob jobs. And I talk all about that because I've done all that myself. You have to pay for those things. You don't have to pay for a smile. You don't have to pay to compliment. And there's so many benefits, like just a crazy amount of benefits. I really feel like kindness, it's so powerful, but it's so underestimated. And I don't know why it is so underestimated, but I really feel like this is whatever you believe in, God, universe, higher power, whatever your belief is. The benefits from kindness, I feel like, is God's way of blessing us for being kind to one another. If you are a Christian, one of the scriptures is, what is it? It's treat your neighbor the way or love thy neighbor as thyself, right? That's the love thy neighbor as thyself. And I think a lot of times Christians, or at least in my community, got caught up on loving thy neighbor. Well, how are we going to love our neighbor if we don't know how to love ourselves? It starts with yourself. Love yourself first so you know how to love your neighbor and you know how to treat them. And so I really believe that kindness stems from love, right? Everything stems from love or fear. That's it. Two things, love or fear. That's where everything stems from. Kindness coming from love. We have to know how to love ourselves so we can love our neighbors that way. And when we do this, we are blessed with the benefits of, so it releases a hormone, oxytocin. That has been known to help with overall heart health. Okay, heart disease is the number one leading cause of death. And kindness helps prevent that. And everyone links heart. Well, think about it though. Everyone links love to the heart. Like literally, you think of love, you think of a heart, right? And here we are, kindness stemming from love actually helps the heart. People are known to live longer who are engaged in kindness like several times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, known to live longer. It releases, serotonin. So the feel-good chemical that heals wounds. We're not talking about that. It calms you down and it makes you happy. So people who are kind are happier, and it can boost our energy. It decreases things like pain and stress and anxiety, depression, and blood pressure, which again, blood pressure can lead to heart disease, which is the number one killer. So it's like, why are we not talking more about this? Why are we running to meds? Why are we doing all these things when I believe there is a way that was designed by God or universe, whatever you believe in, to help with certain things in life? And that's why I say kindness is so powerful, but it's underestimated by so many people. And because so many people don't know how to love themselves, they struggle being kind to people because projecting is real. And when you feel good and you love yourself, you're kind to yourself. So people who are struggling with kindness, my advice would be start learning about self-love. Start there. Whether you want to, if you're a Christian, I would say go to the Bible. I did my research on love and it was amazing. And that was the one thing that was repeated over and over different ways, over and over. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And it was said so many different ways. And I always ask myself, why are things repeated? When you're in class and a teacher repeats themselves, it's because
they're important.
It's important.
That's it.
Listen up. It is important. And that is repeated over and over. Love thyself or love thy neighbor as thyself over and over. But you got to learn how to love yourself. So if you find yourself not being nice and it's not second nature and you don't just jump to it, it's because there's something internally going on. And I really think there's a massive issue in the world with people loving themselves. And I'm not talking like elevated ego kind, like,
well, it's so funny. We're taught forever that like, that's selfish. Like that's selfish.
Yes.
You put yourself first and you're selfish. And as we're, exactly what you've been saying this whole time, like science is showing that the more, quote unquote, selfish you choose to be, the better human you are to the world. Like the kinder you are, the better effect you have on the rest of the people, the more you can lift those around you. The more selfish that you're choosing to be, the better you are.
But you can't give what you don't have.
Yes.
You cannot. And so it really is, it really is, it's projecting. If we're not kind to ourselves, we're not kind to others. And if you think you're being kind and you're really truly not kind to yourself, you're just being nice. And there's a huge difference in nice and kind. I'm talking kindness.
People can see that intention. People can see your genuine emotions that are there, even when you're trying to cover it up with something else. So I say this all the time, but my favorite quote is from Frozen, is that people make bad choices when they're mad or scared or stressed. So if you are feeling mad and scared and stressed, you're probably projecting that on other people. And just like other people, when they are mad and scared and stressed, and they're not acting in a way that you think is great, look at what's causing it, because it probably has nothing to do with you. But how can we change that internal stress and find that joy so that we can then share it?
And a lot of times it comes, I know it sounds like, look outside yourself, right? Sometimes just looking outside yourself helps. But self-love is just diving into self-love, like taking care of yourself, mind, body, spirit. How many times a day do we eat? Some of us 3, 4. I mean, if you go smaller, because 6 times a day, small meals, but yet we neglect our spirit and our mind. I mean, try going a day without eating. Okay, now try going a day without feeding your spirit and your mind, right? And so we just need to learn to take better care of ourselves so that we can learn to take better care of others. And I did post about, Twitch and what was going on and say, trying to say, guys, we just have to be kinder to one another. You never know how your kindness could save a life, because that's how powerful kindness is. On the flip side, you never know how your mean, hateful comment and actions could be what pushes somebody over the edge to commit suicide. That is how powerful that is, right? And so it's like, we have got to be better as a whole. We have got to be better collectively. And because I am on social media and I have platforms, and the more eyes you have on you, it just brings out the trolls. And I am floored sometimes with how hateful people are. And thankfully, I have a solid foundation that I know, okay, you're projecting your insecurities, or you're projecting that. You're not loving yourself, because someone who truly loves themselves isn't mean to other people. Okay. So I understand that. And I am older. Imagine the people who don't have that understanding. And you have people going around leaving the nastiest comments. And that could have been the comment that pushed someone over the edge. Wow.
Oh,
That
it is so true. When I was 14, I didn't even know how to use YouTube, and I had made my first music video with a song I wrote and had my friend post it on YouTube, and I got just the nastiest, horrific comments. And like, it was another decade before I would ever consider writing music again, or ever like taking a full body picture, because all the comments were, "You're fat and gross," and it was really impactful. And so I've seen that in my own life, how that can just devastate people. And so as much as I wish we could just get rid of all the trolls,
yeah.
it's so important for us to be able to build that strong foundation, to recognize that they're not saying that because of you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going out of their way because they're in pain.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a good reminder. It doesn't mean that, I mean, we're all human. And so sometimes I read something, I'm like, ouch, because I'm like, ouch, that hurt. And I'm like, okay. But then I have to stop and think, wait a minute, that person is hurting. That person is trying to make a conclusion on a 30-second video. You don't know me off of 30 seconds, right? And so we just need to remember that. And that is why I believe, love thy neighbor as thyself. Start with yourself. Do kind things. Treat yourself good. It's the whole, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And I was taught to focus on others to a detriment. There's a balance, right? You don't want to just do for you all day, every day. That is a little selfish, right? But when I wake up in the morning and I fill my cup and I listen to a podcast and I get ready for the day, and I went to the gym this morning with my husband and I make my bed. Oh my gosh, making the bed. It's a little win, and you start win stacking all day. I have poured into my cup. And now I am ready to pour into others, because I poured into me first and I have something to give. I am not teaching selfishness, but you can't give what you don't have. So you got to start with yourself so that you have something to give,
Yeah. And I think part of my point was like understanding really what selfishness is, because taking care
Yes.
of your own needs is not really selfishness. That's
No.
my earlier air quotes. I'm not really embracing selfishness, but I am embracing caring for your own self, and how that is not something to shy away from. That's something to go towards, because the more full you are, the more you have to give.
Yes. And that's something. So teaching group fitness for so many years, and I went through it myself. I thought that if I did not have a kid on my hip when I was at the grocery store, or if I took an hour to paint my toes, even though the kids were in bed, like I felt wrong, like I was selfish. But when we don't feel good, we don't give good. And so these moms would come and take my classes, and, oh, I feel so bad. I put my kid in the daycare. I'm like, okay, when you don't work out, how do you feel? Oh, I'm quicker to snap. I don't feel good. I don't have energy. I said, but now you're projecting and you're transferring that to your child. Okay, now tell me how you feel when you put your child in daycare for an hour or two and you work out and take care of yourself. Oh my gosh, like I've got energy. I'm more patient. I'm like, so tell me what's more selfish here, taking care of yourself or not taking care of yourself? Because you're giving how you feel. When we feel better, we do better. When we feel like crap, we give crap. And it's just a mindset, especially amongst women and moms. We've got to stop thinking that. We just have to stop, reflect, and see how we feel. It is not selfish. It really isn't. Kinder to yourself, we're kinder to others. And that's what the podcast is. It's highlighting all these different ways that people are showing up in the world. And thank goodness we are not showing up and rocking our kindness all the same, because it takes all different types to make this world go around. And I really want to just push kindness, with 2020 and the news pushing everything down our throats. I think there is never a time that we've wanted to connect more. And what better way to do it through storytelling, right? Stories really connect us and build community. They help us feel seen, because you realize I'm not alone. Oh my gosh. So Elizabeth went through that. Russ went through that. I did a charity. I know he went through so to know that you're not alone. And some of my most favorite episodes are the ones where people truly open up and are real and they put it out there. I'm like, those are the ones that are going to be most impactful, because everyone's different.
Absolutely.
And we're on different areas of sharing our story and stuff. But yeah, so that's it. And I hope people, we are just wanting to, we are really believe that the Rock Your Kindness podcast will help people just be more compassionate, maybe have a little bit more empathy, and maybe stop to think about being a little bit kinder to people.
Oh my gosh, this whole thing has been so uplifting and so incredible. Tell us how we can follow you on all your social platforms.
Oh, so I'm everywhere. On Facebook, I'm Tracey Donnell Ferrin. I threw my middle name in there. On TikTok, I'm Tracey D. Ferrin. And on Instagram, I'm Tracey Ferrin. I probably should have kept it one, but
that's all right. We'll find you.
Yeah.
And then your podcast is Rock Your Kindness.
It is. And you any platform that you can listen to a podcast on, it's on there.
And your book is Up Struggle on Amazon.
On Amazon, absolutely.
Yay. Oh, I'm so excited to go follow you everywhere. And I'm sure everyone who's listening is just blown away, because you have just shared so much goodness and joy with us. What an incredible story you have. And I'm just honored to get to witness everything that you're doing with your incredible life after you went through something that could have just shut you down, something that could have made you go, no, this is it, this is too hard, I just can't anymore. And instead you let it lift you, and you've used it to help everyone around you and to just have this incredible light that shines so brightly. So thank you so much for coming on the Seeking Sunshine podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I hope you have an incredible day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Tracey, for coming on to the Seeking Sunshine podcast. She shows what the sunshine is like through every single bit of her story. It's astounding. Like, her story just blows me away. So here are my very favorite takeaways. Number 1, I'm a huge advocate of listening to your intuition, to really listen to that, because doctors mean well, but nobody knows our bodies better than we do. Number 2, watch me. Don't tell me I can't do something. I will prove you wrong time and time again. Number 3, you can do anything. It might just take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of consistency and a lot of practice, but you can do it. Number 4, the more I talked about it, the less power it had over me. I had to acknowledge my story. I had to own it to move forward. Number 5, this is for you, not against you. Lean in and search for the lesson that it has to offer. Struggles are not the enemy. Struggles are opportunities in disguise. Number 6, what we put on repeat in our brains is a choice. Choose to believe that you will become stronger because of this. Number 7, struggle plus reflection equals the lesson. The lesson plus the application equals growth. Growth equals progress, and progress equals happiness. So struggles can actually equal happiness if we allow them to. Number 8, how are you going to love your neighbor if you don't know how to love yourself? It starts with yourself. Love yourself first so you know how to treat your neighbor. Kindness stems from love. Number 9, you never know how your kindness could save a life. That's how powerful kindness is. And number 10, when we don't feel good, we don't give good. When we feel better, we do better. And when we feel like crap, we give like crap. Oh my goodness, Tracey I had such a difficult time narrowing this down to only 10 quotes because there was so many gems in this episode. So much gold, so much beauty. Her story just inspires me so much. I hope that you will go check out her podcast, Rock Your Kindness. Go read her book, which is called Up Struggle, and it's available everywhere. The links are in the show notes. And just go follow her. She has such inspiring, incredibly joyful and happy content across all of her platforms. She's absolutely worth a follow. So go check her out. And if you have the opportunity, go check out my website. I have recently launched my self-care coaching business, and I'm now offering one-on-one self-care coaching, which is a really, really powerful tool to dramatically change your life. So if that is something you're interested in, there's more information on my website, which is KaraleigHgarrison.com. And if you're interested in coaching specifically, it's KaraleigHgarrison.com/coaching. Thank you again for coming and joining me on this journey as we look for the sunshine through all of the trials that life throws. And sometimes, like in Tracey's case, those trials are really severe and really heartbreaking. And yet she still was able to find sunshine, and so can we. So I hope that this lifts your mood, brightens up your day. And if you just fell in love with Tracey like I did, please share her episode. Her story and her strength deserve to be shared everywhere because it's so inspiring. It helps us all want to be better humans, or at least it does for me. So thank you again for coming to the Seeking Sunshine podcast. I hope you have an absolutely incredible day, and I'm going to leave you with a song. Dear God, I come before Thee again. I'm worried that it bothers You. I have the same request. Father, we still need money. Father, please grant me patience. But most of all, what I need is Thy strength. 'Cause this is hard. This life I lead is not what I had planned. This is hard. There is so much I do not understand. I know that You're there. You say that You care, but sometimes I struggle to feel Your love. Dear God, I'm back on my knees again. I'm hoping that You'll see through my overwhelming pain. Father, I still want to know You. Father, I'm trying to be faithful, but what I need is to see Your hand in my life. 'Cause this is hard. This life I lead is not what I had planned. This is hard. There is so much I do not understand. I know that You're there. You say that You care, but sometimes I struggle to feel Your love. When it's hard,
what is the right choice? Why do you feel far away? Dear God, I'm pleading today. If you're on my side, then come what may. 'Cause this is hard. This life I lead is not what I had planned. This is hard. There is so much I do not